Hey everyone, it's Kariana, your favorite witchy coach. So today, guys, I'm going to be talking about resentment and anger while manifesting SP, but this does pertain to everything, anything that you're trying to manifest. Okay, before I dive into that, I wanted to remind you guys that all of the information for my sessions will be down in the description box below. So check that out. If you need help on your journey, I am here to help. And then I wanted to remind you guys to like, share, subscribe so I can reach as many people as I can on this channel. All right, guys. So let's dive into this. This is a topic that I have experienced myself lots of times while manifesting. My friends, my clients, I've seen it a lot, guys. So very natural to have anger and resentment while manifesting, but we're not dwelling there. We're not going to stay in that state because obviously that state will continue to drive the hamster wheel, as I like to call it, and we will create more of that. Okay. All right. So anger, resentment. If you're here and you're angry and you're having resentment while manifesting your SP, you are not alone. Or while you're manifesting anything. Okay. But I'm going to focus on SP because usually when we're experiencing anger and resentment while manifesting, it usually pertains to a relationship. A relationship has gone wrong. You guys have history. It's been back and forth. It's been up and down, rocky. It's been a roller coaster. Some of you guys might be feeling like you're dealing with, a quote unquote narcissist or, an abusive situation, a toxic situation. I hear these words a lot, right? So I'm going to kind of gear this towards SP, but just remember that you can apply this. This does pertain to anything that you're trying to manifest in your life, anything that you're having difficulties with. Okay. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys. So when we are in a state of resentment and anger, okay, and we keep going back to that and we're feeling that emotion, right? Obviously, because we know that, everything manifestation, right, is our world is literally reflecting what is going on in our internal state, right? In our internal world, okay? Our outer world reflects our internal world. What are we thinking? Okay, where are we dwelling? And then that reflects out into our 3D. Okay. So if we're in a angry state, in a resentment state, okay, that is literally just a reflection of what is going on in us, which is lack. Okay. Usually when we're in a relationship and we have a lot of history and we've gone back and forth, like I said, it's been maybe turbulent, toxic, up and down roller coaster. And we feel like this person has, maybe emotionally withdrawn. Some people, come to me and say, oh, they blocked me again. They broke up with me. There's a 3P. I'm never the priority, whatever the case may be. Right. And we stay in that, we go back to that. And then what happens is that drives that lack within us, right? And then we experience more of that because we're focused on it. All right. Like I said, resentment and anger are normal. This is a normal thing, guys, but we can't stay in that state of anger and resentment because we have to remember also that we are the ones that are creating this. That's why I said we have to remember that, our outer world, our 3D is always a reflection or projection of what is going on inside of us. What are we dwelling in? What are we going back to? What are we feeding our subconscious over and over and over again about this experience? Okay. And are we breaking that? Are we breaking that and standing in our power and putting our foot down per se, right? And saying, I'm no longer going to allow this to keep happening. I'm no longer going to allow this to be my story. I'm flipping it. I'm changing it now in this moment. And every single time that I go back to that, I know that I'm impressing that, and that will reflect in my outer world. That will reflect in my 3D, and I will experience it. You have to remember too, that when we start applying these things, right, it is instinct, guys, but you have to remember that the 3D has a lag, right? It's catching up to us always, right? We're always quicker than the 3D. So, when we apply these things, okay, and we're not seeing movement or evidence of this right away, which movement and evidence, it's all happening. It's happening in an instant, right? But before we start experiencing it, we must stand in our power and be really, really strong in this and and that's why we say, let's command it. Let's declare that it's happening now. And so it is, right? And stand in that and stay sturdy in that, right? The reason being is because if we don't, and we continue to say, okay, I'm breaking this cycle, I'm breaking this, story that I have with SP, and this person comes around and maybe they're half conformed, right? Or they're coming in, because they're in the middle, because they're just following your instruction. Remember that they're in the middle. So they're coming in and they're acting lovey one day, and then you don't hear from them for a week, right? That's not when we stop and we become wobbly again and we go back into anger and resentment. Okay. Because then we're going to keep experiencing more of that out in our 3D. We'll keep pushing that out. And that involves that wavering again that I talk about all the time, right? And when we're wavering, we're not standing in the conviction, right? We're not commanding it. We're not declaring it. We're not saying that this is my new story. And I'm absolutely going to take my attention off the 3D because I know that that is dead and old, right? It already happened in my mind. Going back in my mind, and I'm going to change in my mind, and I'm going to stand in conviction. I'm going to be sturdy in that. Okay. That is very, very important with this topic. Okay. That's the reason why I'm really driving this home, is because there's a lot of emotions when it comes to anger and resentment. Those are really powerful, strong emotions, especially if you have a history with a person. Okay. And you feel like this person has wronged you. Like I said, they've taken their affection away from you. A lot of them, a lot of stories that I hear, they've left you for maybe somebody else, or they've blocked you, or they've said they don't want to be with you. They don't think you guys are going to work out. Whatever the story is, right? That comes with a very strong emotion. And then when that turns into anger and resentment and we sit with that, that can be very powerful, and that can push out in so many different ways in our 3D. And when it's in our 3D, it can seem very real. It can seem very upfront. It can seem like it's happening right now in this moment, which is not, but it can seem very real. Okay. And those are all driven by a very powerful emotion. And we can get swept up in that kind of undertow, right? Or the hamster wheel, as I like to call it, the Groundhog Day of like being in that resentment, that anger, creating more lack, right? And that's what's going on internally. And then that projects and reflects out in our 3D. And then we end up in that cycle of this person's never going to change, right? This person, I knew this person was a narcissist. I knew this person was toxic. I knew this person didn't love me. I knew this person was going to block me again. I knew they were going to break up with me again. I knew they were going to break my heart if I trusted them again. Okay. So I want you guys to realize that when we have that intensity, those emotions, let's remember that it is okay to have those intense emotions. It is totally normal. It's totally natural, but it's where we go next with them. It's where we dwell, and where do we stand sturdy in conviction and declare and command that these things are now changed, right? That my new story is now that I am well taken care of, that I am put on the pedestal, that I am SP's number one priority, that SP thinks that I am amazing, that SP makes every single thing, every single day about me. This person puts me on the pedestal. They put me first. They spoil me, right? This person would never block me. They would never run away from me because I am their favorite person. And they view me as their perfect partner. They view me as their dream girl, their dream guy, right? This person views me as their ideal partner. They love me for exactly who I am. They think I'm the most beautiful person that ever, hit this planet, right? They love me inside and out. They love everything about me. They accept me for who I am. And the love is unconditional. Okay. That is the new story, guys. And whatever else you want to fill in. Okay. But remember, we always have to use our mental diet, always use it in our favor. Don't spend the energy on living in this anger and resentment, even though it's natural to be there. Okay. Just recognize what comes up. I never say deny any emotion. Recognize what comes up. Okay. And then let's flip that and change that. And I always say, recognize what happened. You know, I remember when this person was blocking me and not prioritizing me. I remember when this person put every single friend that they had before me. I remember when our relationship was lacking and it was a roller coaster. I remember how many times we broke up. Yeah, but that's our old story now. And now go into the things that I just told you to go into, that I just reiterated to you, that I just affirmed to you. Because quite frankly, right, it's all words. And I just gave you intentions and a mantra to tell yourself, a solid story to stand in, conviction, right? And say, this is now my story. This is now how I'm going to experience my relationship from here on out. Okay? Remember that this person, and I'm not trying to say, this is another video, and I've talked about this very, a lot of times, but just because we created somebody in our 3D to, reflect something that's negative, okay? And we can take responsibility for creating that, doesn't mean that we can't have that person show up and take accountability. And of course, have them conform to the new story, right? You can do that. You can absolutely do that, and that's okay. Okay. But remember that once we do that and we make that commitment, we say, this person is now going to acknowledge what they've done to me, right? They realize that they messed up and they're now going to acknowledge that. And maybe you want an apology, right? They're ready for this vulnerable conversation. They're going to tell me everything that I've been needing and wanting to hear from them so I can move forward from this. Okay, so I can break these chains of resentment and anger. So I don't no longer go back to that. I can see in their efforts and their actions now, without a doubt, that this person loves me and they've done this complete 180, right? They're strong in their, in their mending of this relationship, right? I can see in their actions and their efforts that they're serious about me and this relationship and making this work. And they'll do anything and everything to do that so they never lose me again. Why? Because I'm precious, because I'm the main character, right? Because I am literally the most important thing in their reality, right? The most important person in their reality, however you want to word it. Okay, guys. So I just want you to remember that it is absolutely okay to acknowledge these things. Okay. Don't stuff them down, but don't dwell there, right? We're going to be using that energy, okay? All of that intense energy that we're using for the anger and the resentment that we keep going back to, that we're staying in that lack, and we're using all that energy to stay there and go back there and stay in that hamster wheel. Let's use that to move forward, to change our story, to flip it into the fact that now we're showing up for and that we're loved unconditional. And then these things are not a doubt in our mind anymore. And that we are absolutely on the pedestal. And remember what I always say, everybody sits beside us in our pedestal, right? Nobody's above us. Nobody's below us. Because if somebody was above us, that would say that they had precedence over us. And this is our reality. Remember, this is our quantum bubble. We get whatever we want and we control it. We control exactly what we want in our own quantum bubbles, right? We all have them. We don't experience each other's. So don't worry about what they're doing in theirs. Just focus on yours. And that's why nobody else is above you, right? Because you're the creator and you're in this, and this starts and ends, and it starts and ends with you. It begins and ends with you, right? And then we never say that anybody is below us, right? We're never going to do that. Why? Because then we're saying that we're creating somebody that doesn't match up to our desires, right? They don't match us on our pedestal. They don't give us what we desire. If they're lower, if they're below us, okay? We're short on exactly what we want from them, what we completely desire from them. We're falling short. So what is the answer to that? Everybody sits beside me on my pedestal. There's room for one person. I'm on the pedestal and everybody sits beside me. Okay. So just take that with you. Really step into your power as many times as you can a day. I always say that, guys. I love each and every one of you guys. You guys are powerful. You guys have this. I know you guys can do this. Okay. Whatever state that you're watching this video in, leave knowing standing in conviction that your story has now changed. Make that decision. You make the rules. And so it is, guys. And so it is. I love you, and I'll see you in my next video.